Hello and welcome to Psychic True Crime. My name is Errity Green and I am excited to bring you a fact/truth check on Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard. You know, this person versus that. What's the truth? So we are going to do a temperature check today on Johnny Depp and Amber Heard and see what the cards have to say. I have my own theory and maybe I'll talk about that at the end, but I will start with what the cards have to say. Maybe my opinion will be changed by the time we get there, to be honest. So, I encourage you to stick around if you find that you like this channel or appreciate this reading or want to follow along for more true crime where we dive into cases like Natalie Holloway and JonBenet. All of these are upcoming. Do press the subscribe button and the bell icon. That way you receive notifications every single time a new video pops up. And if you want to get to know more about me and my work, I do have another YouTube channel called Wise Women Oracle and Tarot, and I support people with both personal readings as well as coaching programs. You can find out those details below or at erritygreen.com. So without further delay, I think it's time that we get started. Again, these are meant to be short and sweet. We're going to see what's going on here. Where do we want to go first? Okay, I really wanted to cover Amber first, but I feel like the energy is guiding me toward Johnny Depp. So of course, everything I share here today is alleged for entertainment purposes only. I am following the energy of the cards. I've also stated the intention, set the ground rules, that we are covering only that which our highest selves spirit wants us to know, nothing more, nothing less, so that we serve the highest good of all things, right? The highest outcomes for us and for all. So we're not going to find out anything that we're quote unquote not supposed to. With that said, we are going to dive in as far as we can. So the intentions have been set for all good juju, though, right? That's what we want around here. All right, so let's go ahead and dive in. The first thing I'm seeing for Johnny Depp, like I said, some of this is going to be surprising because I find out shit too. All right, so what I'm seeing is some anger and some aggression, which is interesting and a little bit hard for me because I felt like he was the innocent one. I'm going to stop with my own reservations and I'm going to read the energy. And not only do we have aggression and sort of Mars energy. Is this Mars energy? Yeah, or at least Aries, Moon in Aries. We have source, but look, could that be source of aggression, source of the problem, source of the conflict and disagreement? Very well, could be. We don't know for sure. We're only one card in. This might be longer than 5 minutes, maybe more like 15 to 20. We'll see. But I feel like there is a lot of red and orangey, fiery energy here. Kind of matches my hair. And it says source. So is he the source of the problems here? And as I say that, I'm feeling some contraction. So I would say, you know, I don't know if that would be a fair assessment that he's the source, but the energy I do feel is maybe out of control or volatile, and maybe things happen when he was under the influences of substances, and maybe could have been in a particularly challenging substance abuse issue that maybe he hadn't experienced prior to that, or was at a depth that he really felt like he didn't know what to do anymore. He had lost control. He didn't know how to find his footing. Of course, this is all alleged for entertainment purposes only. I'm feeling that energy of sort of when you are dealing with some of the most difficult things in your life, you might exhibit or manifest more uncustomary or out of norm behaviors than you normally would. And so maybe while he did dabble in things, haven't we known that about Johnny Depp in terms of substances, drugs, so on and so forth? You know, maybe that's happened for his lifetime. None of that's clear here, but it is clear, or what I do feel is maybe there is some kind of under the cover, under the radar volatility that maybe he wasn't even aware of or fully conscious of. And I think perhaps part of the healing that was available in this connection was getting to know those parts of himself that were coming to the surface or coming forward only in situations where he was encountering a pretty phenomenal catalyst. So this feels like someone for a long time who sort of laid low or under the radar, you know, sort of soft-spoken, daydreamy kind of energy, and yet it feels like with the situation, the antagonism and or the catalyst, that there was a poking of the bear that sort of awakened the beast, and this was intended to support his higher healing, his greater growth, his spiritual evolution. Of course, this is alleged for entertainment purposes only, but it feels like he was facing his own demons through this experience with Amber. Now, I haven't felt any energy come up yet between them. We are going to get to that in a moment in terms of like how she is involved, right? That's what we're here for, is to find out what's going on with them. But right now we're touching on Johnny's energy, then we're going to touch on Amber's energy and the relationship. Perhaps we get to the relationship before that so we can connect some dots together. With that said, I feel like he might be known as sort of some calm, cool, collected kind of person, and yet when sort of pushed between a rock and a hard place and or under the influence of substances, he might not have realized his volatility, his level of volatility. Like a volcano waiting to erupt, and how a volcano can remain dormant for years, for a lifetime, for lifetimes, but then suddenly with the right pressure or the right variables, everything explodes. And Amber might have very well been that pressure, that kind of variable that was required just so to break him open. I'm not at all suggesting her innocence. We have not gotten to her psychology or what's going on behind the scenes for her yet, but that's what I'm getting so far. Let's see what else here. Yeah, so I feel like ultimately this could have been a time for healing for him, because look, we are getting these two cards: receptivity, a personal issue reaches resolution. Look what we have here, and this speaks to the energy that he usually is, right? So in the situation with Amber, allegedly for entertainment purposes only, we have this kind of energy: Mars, Aries, explosions, volcano. Then we have calm, cool, collected, watery, easygoing energy. Like this is who he usually is. And in most situations, very stable, right? Very easygoing, very loose, you know, just kind of lets things roll off his back. But for whatever reason, when Amber entered his world, he became an active volcano. I do feel like she was very much a catalyst for this, meaning gasoline is a pretty volatile chemical, right? Even though gasoline on its own doesn't explode, it's still something that we would consider volatile. And really what I'm getting with that is I feel like Amber, but maybe even Johnny both, they might be gasoline on their own, right? But then when they enter into the room with a flame, there's an explosion, kind of like that line from the Eminem and Rihanna song, when a tornado meets a volcano, something like that. It's like maybe they're fine on their own, but when they come together, there was a volatile kind of combination that just didn't work, you know, kind of oil and water. But ultimately, spiritual evolution wise, he was meant to get to know these other parts of himself, you know, the other parts of himself, but also both of them. You know, of course, that's how it works in relationships. We're meant to get to know ourselves through other people and do that self-discovery journey and healing work to ultimately evolve the soul. So he might have only known this part of himself. I feel like he knows to a degree, allegedly for entertainment purposes only, what makes him tick. But I think a lot of that stuff was mostly dormant, under the radar, and kind of left for dead, you know, let sleeping dogs lie kind of thing. But then sometimes gasoline enters the room, and if you're a flame, baby, shit's going to burn. All right. So let's see what's going on here. So ultimately, he had a wound, an inner childhood wound of not feeling good enough, not feeling worthy. I feel like at some level, within this relationship specifically, allegedly for entertainment purposes only, he felt like he wasn't good enough. And I do feel some energy here, and I'm going to assume it's Amber because that's the reading that we're doing and the context we've set for this reading. But I do feel like she made him feel unworthy. I am very much feeling like she might have been, now I don't have the energy here isn't aggressor, but I am feeling like someone who kind of scares a dog or yells at a dog enough to where it starts hiding in a corner. And I feel like Johnny Depp started to question, you know, who he was, and am I really this person? And, you know, started questioning his confidence, his esteem, his worthiness. And he started to sort of feel like that punished dog in a corner. I feel like in the relationship with Amber, that Amber may not have been a very empowering or supportive or emotionally nurturing person. I feel like that could have been available, the emotional nurturing piece, but I feel like in some way, one way or another, she made him feel bad about himself. And then he would drink or do whatever to excess, and then she'd walk in guns blazing, more or less, and not guns literally. And of course, this is alleged for entertainment purposes only, and we will see what her energy is in a moment. But that's what would get things going. I feel the energy I'm feeling is sort of like a feisty woman who doesn't take no for an answer, and is going to show you what's up, and if you're a bad dog, you're going to hear from me. And then someone who, and in this case, the situation, the man, or Johnny Depp, who feels low, no longer secure in himself, unconfident. He feels like he's competing for the attention of his woman. She's young, she's thriving. He sees her at the top of her game. He feels like he's at the kind of tail end of his career and things are kind of not falling away, but he's recognizing, you know, this is probably more so the end for him more than it is for her. You know, she's kind of a rising star, he's the falling one, and I feel like he started drinking himself into excess and or doing whatever into excess to where he found himself out of control. So far what I'm finding is neither party is guilty. What we haven't seen here or received yet, who was the primary aggressor, who was the abuser, and so far what would the energy alone, which not having gotten to Amber yet, would show me that it's Johnny. Does that mean that he hit her? Does it mean that he was physically abusive? That's not what I'm seeing just yet, but I am seeing anger, volatility, and a lack of control that might start out as sadness, that actually even begins as numbness, you know, using substances and stuff to hide all of that, but then is more or less a ticking time bomb. So that's interesting. That's not at all what I expected or suspected as Errity. So it is what it is. We're going to find out. We're going to keep on going and see what's going on here. I want to see if there's anything else that wants to come through here with these cards. Give me a moment. Yeah, again, I feel like something about his rising star, his fame was waning, and he was already sort of second guessing or questioning himself because of that, and maybe lack of opportunities or lack of success or blockbusters or whatever. And then he meets this young woman and he feels like he's competing for her attention. She's not helping the situation. It's not that I don't yet feel her being like domineering or aggressive. That, I mean, clearly it was. I mean, she's admitted, this is as Errity in the audios, that she's punched him in the face before. But when we ask about dynamics, because it looks like there was a lot of conflict, negativity, and volatility in this connection. However, I'm not seeing that either party is innocent. I'm not seeing that there's one who's clearly the aggressor. I feel like, again, maybe his wounding was fueling a lot of the volatility or the issues, but that she very much was a dog that didn't just bark, but she bit. I know I called him the dog early in the analogy, and of course this is all alleged for entertainment purposes only. I feel like she stirred the pot. You see what I'm saying? Like when I was talking about gas and volatility, she stirred the pot, okay? She wasn't making this easy on him. She wasn't making it any easier. You know, there was no like healing happening here. It was very much like he was already upset, a ticking time bomb, and she was like, sure, let's throw some gasoline on this fire. So that's kind of the energy that I'm getting so far. Let's see what else we have here. Yeah, so what was going on with him psychologically or spiritually speaking, and of course this is a legend for entertainment purposes only, all of this was coming to a head so that he could address it for himself. So he could take a look at these ugly dynamics within himself, this unworthiness within himself, this personal issue, and sort of evolutionary journey he was going on as a human as we age and mature and chapters change and our lives change. And it was really a time for him to come to terms with that maybe things were changing in his life and his career. Maybe he had made some decisions he wasn't happy with, kind of foot and mouth financial decisions or career decisions or family decisions. And now he's questioning himself. And instead of that being an opportunity to sort of affirm his insecurity and unworthiness wounds, which is what it was doing, and again, stoking that fire and then causing more issue and volatility with someone who was like a tornado to him, or a volcano, whichever one, you know, each of the roles played, or whichever, you guys get it, according to that song. But this was supposed to actually bring about a greater healing for him. It was supposed to bring about greater awareness for him. And I feel like he has looked at some of that now, and he's realizing what he is capable of, and maybe what was left sort of in the closet or underneath the rug that he hadn't yet addressed. Because as Errity, you know, having known some facts of the case and not knowing anything behind closed doors, his exes have said he was always so calm and gentle and sweet and easygoing. And then it makes you wonder, when we're looking at these energies here, that perhaps that's because it was always being hidden. You know, there's no such thing as someone never getting mad. There's no such thing as someone never being mean or rude. And if that's the case, and this is what they're saying, what that would have me believe is that for so long he hid all of this stuff, swept it under the rug, because he wanted to maintain this gentle persona, this easygoing persona, this chill persona, and yet was actually numbing himself probably with a lot of substances over the years, not even knowing that he was creating a dormant volcano within him, but he just needed just the right ingredients that was going to make him blow. And Amber was that, allegedly, for entertainment purposes only. So let's see what else is going on here with the final cards. Well, let me show you. I don't know if I showed you these yet. The healing that was meant to happen, the energy gaining momentum to all come to a head, to support him to take a look at this. Of course, it feels like instead of taking a look at it consciously or sober, he was under the influence. And I truly believe, based on the energies here, allegedly for entertainment purposes only, that I don't think he even realizes how aggressive or volatile he was at times. And again, we're not getting physicality yet, but we're just getting the energy. However that manifests, it's tough to say because we weren't in the room, because energy can manifest in many different forms, in many different ways, and all we have right now is access to the energy. But it feels like instead of looking at it consciously, he would go into substance altering states and then not even be aware of what he was saying, what he was doing. And so perhaps then when he was sober again would deny it or not recognize what he had done, and perhaps not even be willing to take responsibility for it. And I feel like Amber, allegedly for entertainment purposes only, maybe became bitter or resentful and wasn't going to have that. And again, certainly didn't make it easier. It feels like this is a girl who was still going on nights out in the town, hanging out with dude friends, doing her thing, chilling, you know, a woman at the height of her fame, which was maybe a D-list star, but still the height of her fame. I don't know if that was like a jab, a low blow jab, but I'm just saying, you know, height of her fame, but you know, how big was the star? It doesn't matter. The point is she was getting to a point in her career where she was kind of living her life. And I don't think that made Johnny happy. Again, I think that, again, poked his insecurity and unworthiness wounds even more and led him into the even deeper rabbit hole. And then of course, when she shows up at 2 a.m. from her night on the town, things aren't going to go very well because he's already like 12 bottles of wine deep. That is an exaggeration, but that's the energy that I'm feeling, allegedly for entertainment purposes only. So let's see what else here. We have one final card for Johnny, and I'm feeling like we'll get into Amber and the relationship. Let's see here. Yeah, I feel like when he got something in him, like some kind of substance or you know what, all of a sudden now he's big, bad, and mean and has something to say and something to do that otherwise he didn't do. Like, again, normally this kind of gentle energy, this gentle persona, you know, this is not who Johnny is, right? And that's even what his exes and his friends say. They support him. He doesn't even know because he doesn't know himself when he's out of control. He knows himself as sober Johnny. When he's blacked out, he's not even seeing any of this again, and he's also repressed a lot of this, so he doesn't even know, I feel like, the full truth. I think he's caught on to it by now, but I don't know if he realized the full extent of it at the time when he was being presented with this evidence of her being like, do you know what you did, and you get so fucked up, and look what you said to me when you were drunk, and all that kind of stuff. But I feel like he starts getting like, you know, he's starting to like flex, feeling like he's hot shit or something because he's under the influence, and now he's got a mouth on him. And it's like the dog when he was sober that was in a corner and really wouldn't say anything to Amber or like really address his feelings directly or even address her directly. And that was the dynamic of the relationship, right? She was more or less the one in control. He was seeking her. He knew that she had the power ultimately to stay or to go. Of course, she was there, I feel like, as Errity. I haven't gotten the energy yet of like, she kind of knew he'd be good for the career, and plus he was hot, and why not? It's Johnny Depp. So I feel like she was primarily the one in control because she was the one who could take it or leave it. I think he knew that. And then now when he would be under the influence or under some kind of drug or substance or whatever, in terms of being intoxicated, all of a sudden he's got something to say, you know, and it doesn't feel like it goes well. Like, take a look at this energy, confidence, Leo energy, the rebel. He's getting fiery, he's getting feisty, he's finally giving some words to his feelings, he's being direct with her, he's not mincing words, he's letting her know how he feels, and it doesn't feel like it's like hardcore truth. Again, was this physically violent or physically aggressive? We haven't touched that yet. We're going to see what their dynamic is together. So far, though, what I'm getting is neither party was innocent. She was controlling. She knew that she was sort of like the headmaster of this relationship, and that he was more in love with her than she was with him, and that she might have been using him for his different resources of all kinds, and that she didn't have like an emotional depth or substance to her, allegedly for entertainment purposes only, as maybe Johnny did. Johnny was a deep feeler, deep emotionally investor. Like, this is someone who bonds, and he bonds for life. And she, being more of a free spirit, someone who's very confident and kind of do as she pleases or whatever, that again poked his wounds, and she didn't know how to meet him at that level. And so they have this dynamic here that you can see is just a total mess, for lack of a better word. Of course it can bring about greater healing and evolution, but it's a very intense connection, very much like that Rihanna Eminem song, where you kind of know it's a derailed train, a runaway train. This is not going anywhere good. And so that's what we have so far. Someone, again, who might have been shy or soft or gentle when sober. Again, felt like a cowering animal in a cage or in a corner. I can see this is not going to be a short and sweet reading. Forgive me. These are new to me, so, and especially doing them on YouTube. So we're just going to roll with it. All of that to say, when he is under the influence of substances, all of a sudden he's big bad wolf and has something to say to her, and she's not having it either, because again, she's not going to be making it easy on this dude. If he's coming to her with direct truth, this girl has a mouth on her, and she's not only a dog that's going to bark, she's going to bite, and she has no qualms about that. She doesn't feel guilty. She doesn't feel remorse. She has no fucking problem. If you F with her, she's going to F with you. Not even playing. So I feel like that's the energy that people pick up on when they're feeling like she's the aggressor or the abuser, even though both people feels like very much toxic in this relationship and this connection. Maybe not toxic on their own, but toxic together. And I feel like people assume that she's the aggressor because she's very clear that, you know, kind of like that, all the energy that we've talked about, and they assume Johnny Depp is like this easygoing, sweet little puppy, and that she's this lioness, and she is a lioness, but it feels like a lot of the issue was because of his insecurity. That's what we're getting so far. We haven't even gotten to Amber yet, so let's give it some time. The very first card that we have, you guys, I don't know what to do with this truth, because I thought the opposite. I'm learning right along with you. We have innocence here. Innocence. Does this mean that she's innocent? Now, we already know that she's not completely innocent because we've covered a lot of ground already, even though we haven't touched on her directly. This might be also, because we have touched on some of these energies already, we are aware of the dynamic. We are aware of her level of toxicity, at least within the relationship. So what I'm wondering, is she trying to maintain her innocence? Is she trying to convince herself of her innocence? Is she trying to believe herself innocent? I do wonder if that's more what's going on here, because what we know is that she isn't innocent. Now, this doesn't mean that she is the primary aggressor or abuser in the relationship. When we say Amber versus Johnny versus Amber Heard, you know, typically we're looking for like one, right? Who's the bad guy, who's the good guy, the winner and the loser, the villain, the victim. I don't know if we're gonna have a clear picture here. It feels like both were equally victim-ish and both were equally villains in their own way, whether they realize it or not. So I don't know if we can subscribe to complete innocence here, but that's what's coming up, and we're going to see what else it has to say. Let me see what else is coming up here. I might move on to these other cards and see what else they have here. Okay, so we do have the next card that kind of clarifies things for us. Emotions are running high and aloneness. Okay, so what that tells me is, again, some emotional volatility and emotional reactivity in this relationship. Both people were poking each other's bear, right? I feel like she felt very alone in this relationship, and I feel like it's because homeboy was always effed up or under the influence of drugs or alcohol. I can't say that for sure. I don't know. That's what the energy is saying to me. It's as alleged for entertainment purposes only. We don't know. We'll never know for sure. But it feels like she was alone in this relationship. It feels like as emotionally invested as he might have been, as much as he wanted to connect with Amber, it's almost like it was all very much within his own ego. Like he might have devoted himself to her, but if he never shows her that, or if he's always effed up and unsober, then how is that ever going to be clear to her? Clearly she was alone in this relationship, and it feels like she was alone, right? I don't know if we're hitting upon the absolute truth of the psychology profile of Amber here, if we're getting a lot of her persona stuff, because we already touched on innocence, and I know for sure she's not completely innocent. I feel like she's trying to convince herself of her innocence and kind of see herself as, or paint herself as the victim, but she was a contributor to this. At the very least, she didn't help the situation. And we know from the audios, and that's not from the cards, we know from the audio she punched him in the face. But could that have been from a moment of being sick and tired of the antics and the out of control volatility and all of this stuff that she's having to deal with all the time, and him never being sober and going to town with rants and raving all night and all that stuff? After a while, you might fucking punch someone in the face. And I'm just being honest, right? I'm being real. I mean, wouldn't we all? I'm not dealing with a raving lunatic in my house 24/7. He might get punched in the face. Sorry. So I don't know if that's what's happening, but kind of feels like that so far. That maybe that's how things got to that point where she feels deeply alone in this relationship. She feels like she's doing it on her own. Homeboy's off, getting effed up again. But again, she's also living the life. We got the energy earlier of sort of doing as she pleases, hanging out with her friends, hanging out with her guy friends, and just doing what she wants. And that's just feeding the fire over here. And again, it's becoming more and more emotionally volatile. Again, we're getting that energy of she kind of just was living her own life, doing her own thing. And we keep getting that. Like in every time we get the energy of Amber, it's like, I'm doing what I want. I'm doing my own thing. She really wasn't emotionally invested. Again, that could have been hitting upon Johnny Depp's insecurity and abandonment and her childhood wounds. That's alleged for entertainment purposes only. But it feels like she's just living her life and she's having to come home to drunken raging monster. That's what we're getting from the cards so far, okay? And I know that's a very simplistic way to say it, but that's one way to say it. Okay, so I feel like Amber does, though, allegedly for entertainment purposes only, because we have a few cards coming up. She does struggle to see herself correctly. She struggles to see herself completely. I feel like she wears masks. I feel like she is somewhat inauthentic. I feel like she uses people. I feel like she can't reach that emotional depth with herself or with other people. Maybe even to the depth that she thinks that she does. I kind of get a flavor or flare of like maybe some kind of personality disorder. Is that histrionic or borderline? I'm not sure. I am not a psychologist who can diagnose, and I'm not using the DSM. So again, this is alleged for entertainment purposes only, but it does have a little bit of an energy of maybe not being able to contact or access her true self. Someone who's very avoidant, very detached, someone who really doesn't create deep, emotionally fulfilling bonds, who can't even touch those deeper layers and levels within herself or within her own being, who tends to use relationships to meet her needs. It's more transactional, and it doesn't mean that, she's not thinking consciously, I do this for them, they do this for me. It's more of like, that's how she just enters relationship. She doesn't even realize that it's not that. It's like, hey, it has great sex, and hey, we can kind of be around each other and meet our needs for companionship and do well for each other's career. Cool. And again, it's not a conscious awareness. It's more of like just a way that she operates in the world. I feel like she lacks an emotional depth, and again, might have some kind of demonstrate emotional avoidance and or have some kind of personality disorder that sort of uses masks in order to get her way or secure outcomes. So could she be manipulating this situation? It could be possible that in some ways she's trying to push or present her innocence, but we all know whether or not she was the primary aggressor. And I'm feeling like neither is a primary aggressor here. I do feel like Johnny was much more emotionally reactive, hostile and volatile than he even recognizes. It was primarily when he was under the influence, and then she wasn't going to have it or deal with it or put up with it. And so if that meant she had to get physical or say something or do something, or would she call his ass out, no problem, she wasn't helping the situation. That's what I'm getting so far. And this is, of course, alleged for entertainment purposes only. We don't know what was really going on behind closed doors. But I feel like she was never truly authentic with him or showed her true self. But I also feel like, I don't know if she knows who her true self is. Again, very avoidant, kind of like sociopathic energy, but not that level. Maybe more like just, again, a personality disorder, and someone who kind of uses maybe even emotions, though, to secure outcomes or manipulate or get her way. Kind of has the energy of Casey Anthony, kind of has the energy of Nicole Kessinger. If you've looked at the other readings on this channel, it seems like a lot of people who are involved in crime and or this kind of experience, like regular conflict, are the type of people where they're not able to meet themselves or meet anyone at their level of emotional depth. That a lot of it is very surface level and using each other, like as if that's the way to be in relationship. Let's see what else is here. I feel like she had greater expectations for this relationship. She really wanted it to be something else, and that it feels like it was sincere and genuine in the beginning, and probably for the both of them, I would imagine. And it is interesting. We're getting a lot of cool energy and cool colors over here on Amber's side. And what's interesting to me, we had a lot of rebel energy, fire energy, Aries energy, Leo energy over in Johnny's pile, and then in Amber's we have cool, easygoing, watery kind of energy. And that's ironic because that's not really what we've kind of seen in the press. I mean, we have and we haven't, but also people associate Johnny with being cool, calm, and collected. They associate Amber with being this crazy bitch, And or, well, we've also seen the opposite, right? I think it's kind of gone both ways in the press. But also we have all this watery color and energy over here for Amber when a lot of her energy is a little bit avoidant and detached. But that could have been, like we get the loneliness card, is because at some point in the relationship, she completely detached. She was no longer willing to sort of mess with this, invest with this. I feel like she knew it was not a runaway train, what's the word, like a train wreck waiting to happen. So she wasn't going to dive in too deep and kind of just lived her own life, did her own thing until she had to face the issue every single time she came home, and then that's when kind of shit would be stirred and problems would happen. But I feel like she really wanted something genuine for this relationship. I feel like there was obviously an opportunity here. Clearly there was some projection happening here. You know, he had a lot of anger and issue and then would take it out on her, allegedly for entertainment purposes only, when he was drunk. She, of course, was going to defend herself and sink her teeth in because she is a lioness and that's what she does. And so, as what it looks like so far, we haven't gotten into their relationship yet, so let's go ahead and do that. But I feel like there is one more message here that we want to dive into. Just give me a moment here. It's just interesting because I get sort of contrasting energy with this, and so then I'm wondering, you know, is it because we're seeing like the superficial part of her personality or persona, so we're just getting the BS that she tells herself and the lies she tells herself, we're not getting the ultimate truth. But of course I also set the stage and the intention to get the truth, because I feel like she did want to get along, you know, she did want to try to make it work. And again, was that in the beginning? Again, we have that next to innocence, to where she wants to make this work, but is this the story that she's telling herself, convincing, and she's building this whole ego identity around being innocent, and yeah, I really wanted for this to work, and we just couldn't work it out, and, you know, is that even true? But this is what we have in the energy here. I mean, clearly some projection going on. I feel like in some cases she was lying to herself. But overall, in some, you know, we have this picture so far between Johnny and Amber where it looks like Johnny might have been the primary aggressor. He might have been the primary aggressor. We don't know who the physical aggression was coming from, and maybe we can ask that question. We'll find out as we go. And does it even matter? Because I know our criminal justice system tends to focus on who hit. But I think we all know, and what psychologists even say, and even my background and experience in psychology, but also as a person who is on a journey of self-discovery and healing always, that the emotional abuse and psychological abuse is oftentimes even more difficult and traumatic than the physical abuse. So the court of law might focus on who punched, but I think we really need to look at the deeper dynamics. That's what we're doing here today. The law doesn't do this, right? The court of law doesn't dive in this way, nor do they have access to this information, nor would they ever use a psychic. All of that to say, while the court of law might value and place more importance on physicality, I think the other layers are equally, if not more important at times. And so, you know, we have a dynamic here where both people were culpable to a degree, but it does look like Johnny was the primary initiator of at least these outbursts of anger and volatility that ultimately led to the conflict requiring dissolution of their marriage. This is from the reading, alleged for entertainment purposes only, not at all what I thought. So let's see what else is going on here. Yeah, so there was a lot of fighting and taking things out on each other. So now we're getting into the relationship piece. This might be a little bit helpful for us to really clarify what was going on. A lot of fighting between each other, and they were taking out their upsets on each other, those inner childhood wounds, his insecurity and feeling of abandonment because she's out doing her thing, but also same thing with her. You know, she is upset and hurt because he's completely MIA emotionally because he's over here drowning himself in alcohol, allegedly for entertainment purposes only. So I feel like he doesn't even know the whole truth of this and is just trying his best to piece this all together. And I feel like she is having to defend herself because it feels like she did get reactive or volatile at certain times and respond. But in any kind of toxic soup, we all become toxic. And so I don't think she was fully innocent here, although she might be more so, not the aggressor. If clearly she was victimized in some ways. But I feel like she was primarily reacting. Any of her manifestations of aggression, it feels like from this reading that she was responding in defense, and or she was like sick of his shit, you know? So, but they're fighting, they're taking out their wounds and issues on other people. I did even want to ask, and I sat there for a minute when I paused the video to see what Amber was learning and what her primary childhood wounding was, because we saw Johnny's, and I know that she is relatively avoidant and refuses emotional depth. So, was this reactivity and volatility to support her to dive into her emotions more deeply and really look at what was there, or look at her defensiveness or whatever? I'm not sure. Nothing's coming up so far. Maybe we'll get more. Anyway, so their relationship was a lot of fighting, but it was really just them battling out their inner wounding, but with each other. So it was like they were their own stage, battling out what was happening on the inside. Yeah, I feel like, I'm getting that energy again of someone like sitting back and apathetic. This could be Johnny, but I also feel like it's her too, where allegedly for entertainment purposes only, both were relatively lazy and not supporting their relationship to heal or get better. We had homeboy over here getting drunk or losing himself to whatever intoxication all the time or often or whatever, due to all the insecurities in the relationship and in his career and finances and stuff like that. Then we had homegirl who was like doing it up, hanging out with her girls and her dudes and just living her best life, and like, F that situation at home, I'm gonna go do my thing, I'm not even gonna deal with this, like this is just a mess. She was just kind of like, didn't even bother. But of course that's going to stir the pot. And again, it feels like she'd come home from a night of partying or just hanging out even with her friends, and it doesn't feel like was as intoxicated, although could have been, where she would show up at 2 a.m. and she has this dude just like losing his mind, a raving lunatic, doing all sorts of stuff and like accusing her of being with other men, all this. And she's like, what? Like, I was just going out, and the only reason I'm out is because you can't even manage your own liquor and your substances. So like, I'm doing my thing and I have to come home to this. And so she wasn't going to deal with it. You got this raving lunatic between like 2 and 4 a.m. we'll say, allegedly for entertainment purposes only. This is just the story that I'm trying to piece together so we can understand it from the energies that we have here. I'm kind of trying to create a story out of this so that we can work with something. And it's like, she'd come home, she has this raving lunatic, and then he's like doing crazy shit. She's just like, shut up, whatever I gotta do to get this guy to shut up so I can go on back to bed and not have to deal with this BS is what I'm gonna do. So that, if that means I'm gonna punch him out or try to close the door. And then we also know, allegedly, based on what Johnny Depp said, that she threw a liquor bottle at him. And it's interesting because, again, it sounds like she's the aggressor in that story, and clearly she was, if that particular situation was true. And yet the underlying dynamic is that primarily this dynamic was initiated by him. Now when we come together as souls, the spiritual level, I feel like oftentimes we have soul missions or soul contracts involved, such that at the highest truth, this was initiated by the both of them and agreed upon even perhaps by the both of them to bring about this greater growth and healing for the both of them. However, in terms of like human 3D, a lot of his stuff was feeding this. And that's what we're getting. Both of them were lazy with this connection, unable to work on the future of the relationship to actually make it something that was fulfilling, long lasting. Neither of them were doing the healing work. Let's see what else we have here. Yep, a lot of stress. We're getting that energy again. We have stress. We have faith in your dreams. I'm getting the energy of stress on maybe even Johnny Depp's part, where allegedly for entertainment purposes only, it says have faith in your dreams. Was he struggling to, piece his career together, his finances? Did he feel like he was losing control, or his life was crumbling around him, and he left his family of 20 years for this woman who now he realizes maybe he doesn't want, and or she can't emotionally invest, and or he has to fight for her attention, on and on and on. And so he's drinking himself silly or doing whatever he does in terms of his drug use or substance use, allegedly for entertainment purposes only. And so it feels like this was fanning the flames of this conflict. It's a lot of his own insecurity and upset about his career, his finances, his decisions and choices, such that he would drown himself in self-medicating and then become a seething monster, and he didn't even know it. Let's see what else is going on here. So this relationship didn't heal, and I think this is obvious. We already kind of know this, but because they weren't able to shift out of this dynamic. It feels like there was an opportunity here, just like there always is in any relationship and any conflict, to shift it to a higher dynamic, to shift it to a higher vibration, to bring it to a higher frequency. Something that is more healing, is more emotionally fulfilling, and that's the case for all of us. But in their case, it was too. There was an opportunity for growth and healing here, but neither of them were able to step into it. It feels like Amber eventually, allegedly for entertainment purposes only, basically treated Johnny Depp like an eye roll. Like, I can't even take this dude seriously. He's like a waste case. He's completely like pathetic. Like, she just got to a point where she was just like, I can't even pity this guy. Like, he's such a loser. So she loses all respect for him, and again, doesn't help the situation, but all that does is piss him off more. Is, she sees him as a peon, like worthless, pathetic loser, always drugged up and doing whatever. And that's the energy I'm getting. And so she's holding on to that energy, that dynamic. We already know very clearly his. We've talked about that a bunch of times. So at this point, this relationship is going mostly nowhere. Let's see what else we have here. Again, we have 2 cards about the past holding them back and letting go. Let me see if anything else wants to come up here for that, because we did get a few different cards on that. There was, again, the opportunity here for healing, to be able to look at his insecurities, his inner childhood wounding, to look at his doubts about his career and finances, and really work together and sober, it sounds like, to really make this work. But he wasn't available for that at that time, and she had already checked out. She completely checked out of this relationship, and more or less was using their home, their shared home, as like a place to sleep and shower, and she would go back out again. And it feels like she might have just spent most of her time home when he was out of town. So if he was out of town, she's like, all right, I'm gonna, I'll sleep here and whatever. But otherwise, she was attached, she was checked out, she was broken up with him long before they ever broke up. It does feel that she has a lot of resentment and bitterness and a desire for sort of revenge or retribution, because he really did hurt her. This is all allegedly for entertainment purposes only, and not at all what I expected or thought. So if you guys have some haterade for me, I don't know what to tell you, because I'm confused myself. I'm just reading the energy, where she was hurt because she did expect a little bit more from this relationship. Again, I'm not getting like insanely levels of emotional depth from this woman. With that said, it does feel like she was available for something, and yet, what can you do with someone who's like, hanging from the ceiling every night? I mean, I don't know what you even do with that to even, how do you create a relationship out of that? There's not another willing, conscious partner. Now, I will say what's coming through and what I want to share, I think it's important to mention, because people could say, well, why didn't it happen in his other relationships? I think his other relationships were more stable with partners that he trusted, and there were different / better times in his life where he trusted himself with his own finances, his own career. And there was a stability there that sort of held a lot of the threads together, held his persona together, held his ego identity together. He didn't really have to look at these deeper levels and layers of himself, where there was some volatility and some issues to work through or work with. When he met her, and now he has someone who, again, is unstable. He can't really predict it or control it. Again, she's a girl who's kind of doing her own thing, living her own life, her best life. He's in a position in his life where he's questioning his career, his finances, he's kind of insecure about it, and whether this young hotshot is going to continue to stick around to be with this old man. And he's losing himself to numbing, self-medicating at this point. And so I think it was just that time where, kind of becomes right time, right person, and that's when things blow up. It feels like it was relevant to that. Let's see what else is here. One moment. I'm not getting much more, except that there was opportunity here for greater healing, for a shift in this relationship. Yet neither, she turned away, was attached. F this guy. I have zero respect for this loser kind of energy. I'm going to go do my thing and put up with him as I have to, or do what I have to do to keep him out of my face when I come home at 2 or 3 a.m. And he was just all the things we've already said. Why go down that road again? So both kind of faced, and he's like turned inward and sort of self-destructive, and maybe even losing it a little bit. Certainly not available to like look at her, orient himself toward her to really create change in this relationship. And she's long since checked out. So while the healing might have been available, what came instead was, again, projection at each other, the past coming back to haunt them, insecurities, jealousy, rage, apathy, total laziness and withdrawal from the relationship, stress, chaos in terms of finances and career and stuff like that, and being able to make it work. A dumpster fire. And it's really kind of sad that's what happened. I want to see if there's any final questions that might be able to really clarify this situation for us. That way we can get a final answer. One moment. All right, so pulled a final couple of cards because I really wanted to draw this in and sort of take all of this information that we brought maybe into a funnel, something that's a little bit simple, or just simple, not a little bit simple, but simple. I pulled a final couple of cards for Amber, and we have sorrow and the answers that you need are coming. And so what I'm getting from this here is that clearly sorrow was pretty self-explanatory. This genuinely hurt her. I feel like it was a disillusionment more than anything. She maybe had high expectations or wanted this to work, and it simply didn't work out. She does see it as a failure, maybe even a personal failure, but it did hurt, and it is something that she considers a loss, that there has been some mourning, but alongside that is that bitterness and resentment from what she sees as him totally fucking this up. I also feel like there was some cognitive dissonance with her, because take a look at this photo. We have a woman with sort of two different viewpoints here. One where she's sad, one where she's looking forward. Well, there might have been some regrets and remorse, but also she's like, F this guy, where there was some cognitive dissonance and a lack of certainty about how to move forward with this. Again, more cool colors though for her, the blues, the purple hues, all that. We've gotten gray, we've gotten blue, we've gotten purple. That's primarily what we've had for Amber, where a lot of his was very like red and fiery and ablaze and all that stuff. So ultimately, it feels like she might have been the victim. Not that Johnny also wasn't a victim at times. Clearly, we've seen audio where heard it where she's punched him in the face. So I feel like we have two aggressors in this situation. But if we were to say, okay, of the whole dynamic in 3D without looking at the full whole truth and the spiritual truth, who do we say is the victim here? It might very well have been Amber, allegedly for entertainment purposes only. Now, we're looking at Johnny Depp, and I feel like we have bring love to the situation and maturity. There was some growth that he went through, some serious, intense growth that he went through with this relationship, and I feel like he's learning through this. It was incredibly difficult. I feel like he's learning ultimately self-love, and that's what he's gaining. And I feel like he had to look at some hard, difficult, dark places within himself to bring about this next chapter in his life. I don't know where he's at in the healing process. We didn't ask, but ultimately we're getting that he really needs to bring himself some love, some self-love. It's not painting him as the villain here. When I finally say, okay, give us a card to represent Amber, one card to represent Johnny. Where are we at here? It says he needed a lot of self-love. He needed a lot of love to heal, to get better. And so that's where we're at with Johnny, allegedly for entertainment purposes only. And so I said, what's a final message from Spirit here? What Spirit wants to say about this is we're trying to compare sort of apples to oranges. We want there to be an answer. This is the victim, this is the villain. And I feel like the reason we'll never get this and or have a final answer on who is victim and who is villain, we'll probably start doing this for each of the readings. I think I'd like to do that. We get a final answer, final wisdom from Spirit, because there's always a reason why these cases are for public display and public consumption, because we're all meant to be learning from it and healing and growing from it in some way. And so I feel like we're trying to get a final answer and say, put them in a box and categorize it, but it feels like it's much more complicated than that. Because what wants to be shown here, demonstrated, is that, so let's just say Johnny is the villain, allegedly for entertainment purposes only. Let's just say that for a moment. But if we really scale that back to his own wounding, we're going to find a victim. We're going to find someone who's hurt, who's just hurting, who doesn't know how to deal with his hurt, who becomes self-destructive and then might lash out in the middle of the night when he's not sober. So then we get to that complicated point of, okay, is he really a villain, or is he also a victim? Is he a victim of his own doing even? And so Spirit wants to show us that sort of there are many faces of victimhood, many faces of villainhood, and that it's not easy or even possible to really categorize someone as all victim or all villain, that there are many shades of gray here, and that there's a whole spectrum, and that we carry all of these within us, and we're all triggered from different contexts or situations. So maybe while, as an example based on this reading, Amber might have been a victim for a lot of this experience, mostly detached and just trying to stay away from dealing with all the BS. When push came to shove, obviously she'd cold cock him, or whatever what is that saying, right? Or what he said, glocked him or something like that. He used some kind of term like that in the audios. So if that was true, clearly he could back her up into a wall well enough to where she too would be defensive, aka aggressive, aka a villain. But was she really? Because he had victimized her to get to a point of aggressing. But then we could say the same thing about him, right? Then we could back up and say, okay, well, she was completely detached and avoidant and certainly didn't help the situation, would run around town with all these guys in the middle of the night and refuse to come home. Meanwhile, he's struggling in his career and everything else and questioning himself and doubting his own worth and security. So could that have been her indirectly victimizing him? Right? And that's what Spirit wants to say, is there's so many shades here. It's very difficult to compartmentalize or categorize someone in one way or one label. Again, there's an opportunity here. We have that full moon, right? To see the whole truth, the full truth. That it's not going to be just one sliver or one slice. That in fact, everything that we just went through is the whole truth. So I don't know, when we say Johnny versus Amber, fact check, truth check, who's telling the truth? It seems like both of them. Who was the villain? Both of them. Who was the victim? Both of them. Now, what we did find out today is we gained more context about both people. We gained more understanding behind their behavior and what was going on with them at the time and what their primary response patterns were. So we gained an understanding of their dynamic as a couple, but it was multifaceted, multidimensional. We had a lot of things going on, a lot of variables in the pot, and there was no one way to decide, like there was no one answer or one label, and there certainly isn't a final decision here. I feel like, when they have the fights, or a boxing match or whatever, when they have the winner or the loser, and I feel like in this case it's a toss-up. I don't think that we have a final decision today. There was no clear knockout, so it's one of those situations, and that's a really bad term to use in the situation, but that's what I'm thinking of, kind of like two boxers in the ring. There's no knockout, it's up for decision, and so it's up to you, the viewer, now. With all the information that you have, what do you think? And you can leave your comments below. So with that, I will leave you be. I'm sure that is somewhat of a disappointing conclusion. I know as a human, 3D human, I really love being able to get a final answer, and I want my boxes, and I want to know who's the victim and who's the villain. But I think we learned a lot today in terms of what was really going on underneath the surface, behind closed doors, and then we have a better bigger picture around what really happened for them within this relationship. Again, all alleged for entertainment purposes only. It's even not at all what I expected or suspected, so this is a surprise to me. You have to let me know your thoughts below. Again, you can find out more about me and my work down in the description and or at erritygreen.com. I do offer both personal readings as well as coaching programs if that kind of thing tickles your fancy, and again, you can find that information at my website. Otherwise, check out my other YouTube channel, Wise Woman Oracle and Tarot, and I will see you both here and there. Thank you.